Right, Ezra chapter 1, let's call this one structure and subtitle it Stirred, because in this chapter we're going to see God stir the heart of Cyrus, king of Persia, to release the people of Israel to go back and resettle their home territory. And in doing that, as we said, he is going to stir Cyrus's heart to let the people go. But Cyrus, even though he is a Gentile king, is going to resemble in some ways the great kings of Israel and Judah, whether they were establishing the kingdom or getting it set up to succeed in David and Solomon's days, or reforming, more in the pattern of kings like Jehoshaphat or Hezekiah or even Josiah, as we saw toward the end of 2nd Chronicles. Three things that we might have mentioned here and there during their reigns are going to stand out in Cyrus's ministry as well, because he's going to go beyond simply having good intentions, having his heart stirred to send the people back home. He is going to make sure that there is a structure in place so that they are set up to succeed even if something happens to him. And that's going to be important because their return is going to take place over the course of a number of kings. Not all of them are necessarily going to remember what was on Cyrus's heart. So the fact that he is setting this down in a written proclamation is going to structure it in a way that allows Israel to succeed even after Cyrus is gone. And beyond simply setting up the structure, as we've seen in times past, great kings support a great structure with great provision. And that's exactly what Cyrus is going to do here, making sure that the people of Israel return with ample provisions, not only to provide for their own homes, but for rebuilding the temple, which he is specifically going to talk about being part of why he is sending them home, to rebuild the temple and do their best to restore Jerusalem. And in doing all of that, God is going to help him out by not only having stirred his heart, but he is going to stir the hearts of the people, not just all the people who want to go home, but verse 5 is going to describe the way in which God stirred the people this way when it says, "Then rose up the heads of the fathers' houses of Judah and Benjamin and the priests and the Levites, everyone whose spirit God had stirred, to go up to rebuild the house of the Lord that is in Jerusalem." So it's not just a blanket stirring. It's stirring those who have a heart to build, or he's stirring them for the purpose of building the house of the Lord. And so this is going to be kind of the advanced guard that is going to go back and begin the restoration process in Jerusalem. And that reminded me of a parable that Jesus taught about 4 types of soil, saying that there is a sower or a planter who went out to plant some seed. And he did it by scattering the seed that fell on 4 types of ground. Some was likened to a path that was tightly packed so that the seed could not penetrate. Other ground was described as having a mix of soil and rocks that allowed the seed to sprout up very quickly, but did not allow its root system to go down very deep. The other seed fell amongst soil that had thorns or weeds among it, so that when it sprouted up, the thorns grew up with it, choking off its ability to be productive. And then finally, the seed fell on a 4th type of soil that was simply well tended and allowed the seed to be productive. Understanding that the only one of those soils to actually become productive was the one that overcame the temptation to, one, be dismissive of the opportunity, kind of like that soil that was so tightly packed that the seed never really sunk in, missing the fact that this was a chance to actually become productive in something that mattered. 2, it overcame the temptation to only work insofar as the enthusiasm lasted. Enthusiasm having burned off, so did their productivity. And then 3, overcoming the temptation to sprout up quickly, but quit when things got tough, kind of like that seed that was planted among the thorns. And that reminded me of God's call in this chapter to those who would be stirred specifically to rebuild the temple, because they are actually going to be successful over the next couple of chapters in rebuilding the temple, which is going to provide the kind of backlash that we have seen to successful kings and leaders in the past. Because when they get back to the land, the people of the land are not necessarily going to say much until it's clear that they are not simply moving back, but they are moving back and becoming successful. And so the people who are going to succeed here are going to be much like what we saw in the Levites in the days of Josiah preparing the Passover. They're going to be the kind of people who are going to see whatever needs to be done and fulfill those roles. Here, however, the people who are going to be able to implement both the structure that Cyrus has given them and the provision that he's given them to carry it out are going to be those who are tough enough to overcome the backlash to their early success, helping us understand not only the value in having an effective structure, but having the people in place to make that structure work. Understanding with the Levites, having folks, as we mentioned, who have the slash mentality, making sure they have an eye to making sure that all of the important details are taken care of. And in this chapter, seeing that we have people who are tough enough to overcome the adversity that often goes hand in hand with success.